What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Sweat It Out podcast. Today we have a good friend of mine, future nomad. Can't wait to see what this guy's got in store for his future. Sam Pogue, everybody. How you doing, man?
What's up?
What's up, fellas? Great to sit down and chat and talk up, man. It's been a while.
It has been a while, man. How's everything been going for you? I know you're kind of going through a transition period. Why don't you kind of tell us about what you've been doing and what you got planned coming up in the near future?
Yeah, so I mean, I met these guys through the Onnit world and the fitness education platform there. And from there, when I was in Austin, I ended up taking a job at a startup tech company called TrueCoach, and they build software for personal trainers to deliver individualized programming online. And so I stepped out of a biz dev education role into a marketing role. And we just went through a nice acquisition, getting acquired by a company called TSG. And for those of you that have been involved in the startup world, that the early team is not necessarily always brought along the ride for the big kid ride, which is cool. I knew that kind of going in. I wish it had been a better exit for what had happened. And it's a little, it sucks. So I'm in the process of moving out of Boulder. I recently was realizing I was in a negative state and having a hard time not resenting the situation and getting over it. So for me, I'm a big rash person that makes rash decisions. And in the moment, right? Like 6 years ago, I decided to try to get out of the fitness industry and move up to Austin, Texas from Portland, Oregon, only to be the very first member of the Onnit gym and come on board early and work at Onnit when they were a young company, right? But I did it in a moment's notice. I was like, nope, if I don't start going, I'm not going to go. And so about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, just decided, I was like, you know what? I need to get rid of all my shit, sell it all, and do the bad thing. And, just start this next iteration of life, having worked for myself as a trainer at 24 Hour Fitness as well, you're eating what you kill is not a scary thing, right? I'm okay. Like, cause in fact, I like the effort better. It's like, why do I keep getting a salary when if I work harder than these mother effers out here, right, I deserve more money, right? Like, fuck you, right? For riding it out, doing nothing, right? And so that is the nice thing about that world. And it's a world that I love. Right? I love the fitness industry. It's given me so much in life. But because the exit happened not in a smooth way of departure of TrueCoach and I, that I wasn't quite ready to make the jump into doing it. And from that stance, not because I'm afraid to be on camera and do podcasts or do media, but because my vision for what I had laid out for the experience I wanted to create wasn't fulfilled. I'm a big picture person that kind of wants to have everything put together before I go. I don't mind running, and I don't mind that shit's vast and maybe things aren't clear, but I want the bubble. Here's the game, go play the game, right? Instead of needing to have step A, step B, C, whatever.
This is my kind of guy.
Yeah, sounds like Mendez. I'm the opposite. I'm like, all right, let's make a couple lists about the lists that we have to make.
And he's like, slow it down.
Right. All the time. I'm like, okay, that's great. You have 25 ideas you want to do. We got to work on these 5 first that we set forth.
And you need it, right? Like at one, because if you suppress one, you is always thinking logically and sequentially and linear is not going to be like, what's potential? Maybe it's not saying you can't have a great idea, right? Sure. But like, if that's the mindset that you come into it is like, oh, how do I make this efficient? And then you have someone who's like, what's the possibility? Right? Like Budweiser had such a great ad for sports a couple years ago around people's weird sports traditions, right? Like, and they had the whole, like, it's only weird if it doesn't work. And you're like, that's every mother freaking sports fan out there, right? Like, oh, I drank a beer while sitting on the toilet taking a crap. That must be why my team scored. Yeah. I'm gonna watch the rest of the game from the bathroom this year, right? And like, that's a fun thing about sports, but you have to have people who are willing to like step out and be weird and make different decisions. And having a partnership is so key, right? He probably doesn't like, you want nothing to do with like, what the make lit? What? That's just more time away from doing the thing, right? But then like, by yourself, you realize, oh shit, like there's a lot of things I'm not good at, right? Like I have to go back and correct things because you move too fast, you fuck things up, you don't have systems, you're not, replicable. So, in that note, it's like, for me having, been on a team for the last 6 years at Onnit and TrueCoach, it's like, oh shit, I had to jump into that world. And there's a sense of, when you're starting to put out your work, there's, everybody's got emotions and feelings around what they're putting out there and producing. And there's always a level of hate, but what I'm struggling with is watching, like when you put out things like Onnit 6 and Onnit Demand and the certs, it's like, oh, when you're used to putting out big budget things, and then you got to do it yourself. You're like, oh, my ebook doesn't look as cool. Oh, because I don't have 9 graphic designers back there like crushing on a thing. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, we were just talking to Shane about Onnit 6 last episode.
How did
and it's like,
wait, how is it that my muscles look more defined on the other videos?
yeah. What? I don't have a $40,000 camera to use. Like,
totally,
fuck, you know,
right? And those little
or
things make a big
mic,
difference.
You know.
Yeah, and it's interesting to watch. So yeah, it was. So for me now, I just decided, you know what? Because I'm in Boulder now, I need to get down to Austin again and train. I'm a trainer as well, and I work with a baseball player by the name of Jake Arrieta. And so I'll go,
Boom.
boss dude, right?
What a legend.
So go down and spend the off season with him. And then, I'm picking up some consulting projects. The nice thing about spending so much time on the other side of fitness beyond training is, working in big product companies like, Onnit, and then digital like TrueCoach. It's given me really unique perspective that look at with organizations, right? Which I still want to do. Not that I against coaching by any means. I really love coaching. And in fact, I was just talking to Adam Feit, who is high up at Precision Nutrition and a former strength coach in the NFL, and just got his doctorate in sports psychology. And we're both just like, man, I don't want to sit behind the computer for 60 hours a week making content. I don't want to coach 60 hours a week.
Yeah, right.
But
you find the balance.
I got to find the balance. Like, and what I've realized about even like delivering content for myself to push a product and online remote coaching is, as much as I know and think about things, because I'm not having regular conversations with Grandma Betty, right? Which you guys are both familiar with my usage of that, in that that conversation is not spewed up, right? When you're used to talking with an athlete, it's at a very different, because like, clearly that this is towards that, right? Or coaches. And so stepping into, like, I just had to change my tone, my words, and get in the rhythm of that. And so I was like, you know what, why don't you just train some people, right? And then, like, as I'm starting to do some consulting calls, right, it's like, I miss this. I really miss that connection with people of like, wow, I got to make a huge impact in your life. And that's something that I think gets lost in today's trainer market. I know, I'm sure that's quite a few trainers listening to this for you guys, is that the beauty of training was just, you guys came from Equinox, right? Both of you? Yeah. Is like that, while it's a grind, you have, there's a certain attrition to it, that the people that you meet during those hustle years, the trainers you hang out with all the time, dude, it is a great fucking experience, right? And those people, like, you're deep in their lives, right? And you hear this in a lot of people, but personal trainers are the front line to the healthcare industry, right? Yep. It's the first step before you have, like, shit goes wrong or in response to something. And just the level of people you get to touch every day is like, wow, you made a significant impact on that person's getting to, dance at their daughter's wedding, or right. And that's even something that you just go to miss.
Yeah. Even on a personal level, right? Like, some of my biggest mentors in life have come from my clients.
Yep.
Some of my family down here are my clients, other than like him and the people that I've met through working with Mendez. Like, my clients are the people who I hang out with down here. Like, on the weekends, I don't, Miami, as you mentioned kind of off camera, right? It's like a kind of slightly a rude place. People can be pretty standoffish. So, you don't make a ton of those like genuine connections. So when you do, it tends to be as a trainer or as a coach with the people that you're working with. So when I'm on the weekend, I go to restaurants with my clients. I go to the movies with them. I hang out with them at their house and go to their pool. It's just how it kind of works down here with coaches.
And off the bat, like, I always said, as a personal trainer, as a coach, it's probably one of the biggest careers that allows you to be one of the biggest networkers out there. It allows you to really network with people. I have not yet, obviously, I'm sure there's other ones and other careers that allow you to do that a lot, but I think coaching, I think it's one of the biggest, I would say in the top 3 biggest, job and careers that you can actually network the shit out of people and meet cool people and entertain cool people, and actually go to like workshops and seminars and just hang out with a lot of like-minded individuals with a lot of ideas and get a lot of opportunities and with your clients. So I think that it's just like the fact that you can get in front of some amazing quality people and you have that opportunity, I think in itself, that's so much value there, because like I say all the time, to even get in front of those people, sometimes you have to go meet those people at like some of these high function paying like workshops where they might be teaching at, or you might connect with, but at the same time, it's just like when you go there, they're already expecting, they know what people want to talk to them about. They know what people are like, okay, they want to come here to talk about business or this and that. So kind of their guards are a little bit up. But when you're a coach, they're here trusting you with their body. They're here just to get away. They want to be able to focus on themselves and open up to you. So they're going to just be on a whole nother level with you. And it's just like those other people don't get that with those type of clients that you have. So your opportunity is so much greater to be able to get into other opportunities because you have that relationship with your client. And I tell people, a lot of coaches take it for granted, but you'd be surprised how many opportunities I've had in my life, you know, just because I've worked with some amazing clients.
Yeah. I kind of have a question for you on that front. Cause I mean, looking from afar from everything that you've done throughout your career, the amount of networking that you've had to do, right? Working for TrueCoach and working for Onnit, and even, you know, doing things that you want to do on your own. I know that. Are you still running the Fitness Break Room podcast? Are you going to start that back up? You're going to start your own?
Yes, I'm going to start a separate podcast. It's not just fitness driven. I think the more I'm coming around to it, the more I'm looking at maybe moving Fitness Break Room just as like a content piece.
Right.
The thing is, why I was most upset about TrueCoach is I was really looking forward to getting to build something that was like Onnit. I mean, Onnit, the secret sauce behind Onnit, whether you like the supplements, the people, whatever, is that everyone there is trying to get better. Everyone who walks through the doors, coming to a cert, whatever, is there to get momentarily, small, minute, some a little bit better, right? Like in some capacity, from the front desk at the gym to the CEO.
That's right.
And that's what the coolest thing was, to be around that. And to go step in and be employee 9 and think about getting to build that was really exciting. Well, additionally, I get really, we'll say passionate, but I also get kind of pissy about it, but passionate about the quality of coaching that's out there and what you see online being promoted and what is actually the guts of what they do. Because for me, I'm only in this industry because in 2008, there were no jobs. And I'm in this because of a weekend cert. I don't have a master's degree in exercise physiology. So for me to look at, I was able to maneuver that to get in the front of the room to speak at the NSCA, at Eric Cressy's, at EXOS, to train these athletes is like, I take a lot of pride in that because I know how hard I had to work to get there. And you're out there marketing yourself as a kettlebell expert. I don't even market myself as a kettlebell expert, and I teach workshops at the NSCA without a degree
about kettlebells.
About kettlebells. You know what I mean? And I'm like, what? Right? I'm not saying they're not good, but it's like, oh, because it's just as we're, tied into the personal training thing. It's not about your understanding. Not that you shouldn't know this, but like, it's not about your understanding of the femur's interaction with the acetabulum and going through hip flexion, right? Like, sure, you should understand what I just said to a capacity, right? But like, we want to go down the biology route. Like, I don't win that game ever. Right.
Yeah.
And I
have a master's degree. I won't even win that game with some people,
And it doesn't matter, right? Like, if you know how I coach people to squat, don't go as low as, squat as low as you can until you look like your dog taking a crap in the park, right? Like, oh, you know what that looks like? Yeah. Great. Would I love for you to squat with your butt in the ground? Yeah. Can you? No. So we're going to go this low, right? And it's like helping people be successful. And so what I want coaches to love being a great coach. Right? The connection, the ability to draw upon experience and touch these people live. If it happens to be through boot camp circuit, I don't really give a shit. I really don't. I care that you have an attention to detail and a quality control. You know what I mean? That you're not the, go hard, go home, whatever, right? Not that I haven't been that. I was that person.
We've all seen those. Yeah. We've all seen those.
For sure.
Yeah.
And so I thought that TrueCoach could have also been a platform for me to have because I don't necessarily want to productize something to sell the trainers, but I know that I have a lot of experience to give them. So anyway, I was sitting there and I was like, I think I'm going to do is move Fitness Break Room under me as a channel, and just do it with coaches because it'd be easy, but I don't have to. Maybe it won't be travel driven like it was. But the podcast I'm going to launch, I believe the way I'm kind of working through it is going to be called Work Hard, Have Fun. And it's like what my dad used to say to me as a kid. Thank you. And why part of wanting to go nomad was like, I built this dope ass network around the world, right? And have a lot of cool people that have just done cool shit, from like chefs that won CHOP to Academy Award winning directors to athletes to trainers and health professionals. But like also like life shit. Like I want to do one where like it's my dad and I teaching you how to sharpen a knife, right? How to survive, and just kind of like cool life stuff, right? And sharing that. And I think that's part of like the branding that I'm trying to do, right, is this be less unfit, be less fat, be less weak, be less attitude around, like, most people aren't trying to be shredded, right? Like, do they like the virtuous idea of it? For sure.
Yeah.
But
the things
more
that
so people
need
want
to take,
the less, guilt over, I had a glass of wine. Like, bro, like, I mean, you guys came from Equinox. Like, most people there, they say, I'm not giving up beer, I'm not giving up wine, I'm not giving up going out to eat. You're like,
yep.
Yeah, okay.
All right, great.
I mean, that's definitely
all
step
right,
one
great.
anyway.
Great.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, great. Yeah. Unless you're
know,
on South Beach
so-
like I was, then it's like, okay, well, I want pecs and biceps and triceps. Like,
For sure.
you got to lose 30 pounds, and then we can fucking work on sculpting your triceps. Like,
Right. And that's a message that you have to get to. And like, that person's not buying you. I mean, they are buying you because you're shredded. I don't know South Beach. I know it's going to be a little bit different, but also,
I
do you
wasn't
really want
shredded
to spend
at the
time with
time.
someone that doesn't make you feel good? Right. Like,
Right.
are you going to hang out? Like, and you might be signing
3
up for
to
that,
6
right?
days
I'm
a
not
week.
saying that some people don't love the dominating trainer that's drill sergeant. And I'm not saying that some people don't love the empathetic feeler, but
Yeah. I have a mix.
at the end of
I
it,
even
it's
have
about
a
how you
mix,
connect.
right? Like I have to play different characters with different clients. Some of my clients want me to push them so hard that they, are sitting there, I can't do it. I can't. No, you can, and I have other clients that are like, first time I ever met them. Listen, if you ever raise your voice to me, I'm walking out the door, never coming back. Okay. Can be calm,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's fine.
Yeah. Be adaptable.
One thing I wanted to talk to you about networking though is like, because you've been able to, have so much experience and so much time with all these people, for those quality coaches who are maybe afraid of like what to do first or the best practices, what are some tips that you can give people on how to expand their network, not just like in total, but with quality people, right? People who can mentor them, people who can help them out and who they can help out with whatever it may be, whatever endeavor that they're going down.
Yeah, man, great question. It's something that I've had to look at differently. It wasn't until recently that I recognized that like I clearly do something very different than others, which is why I'm good at it, right? But early, my buddy Chris McCoy, and he used to be, are you guys familiar with what DECA is? DECA is a business and marketing club in high school. He was a national president, and he was like my elementary school and his best friend's brothers. And he looked at me and he says, just remember one unique thing about every single person you meet. And I was like, wow, okay. That was a really interesting thing to say, just about connecting with people and meeting people, right? Well, I need to also back you up. And I got a lot of reps at this early as a kid. My mom was a youth minister. So I'm in the church all the time, shaking hands with Grandma Betty, helping out with the special ed kids, helping out with the Bible camps, and as a kid, I'm praised for how great I am at interacting with adults, right? Also, as an only child, that means I'm around high schoolers my entire existence as a kid. So I'm always around kids who are just a little bit more mature, right? And then my grandpa was on like city council, and he was also a postman for like 50 years, a mailman. So he knew everybody in town, right? So everywhere I went, it was like, oh, Joe, your little helper, Robert, as a kid, and like, oh, what a nice young man. And so like that was so much of my reps. And looking someone in the eye, shaking their hand, hey, how you doing? And having something to say, right? And I get this is where a lot of people get hung up. They're like, what do you say to people? And it's
just act like a human.
And that's
act like a person.
I want that to be the thing, but it's clear that's out there, right? Like, don't be weird. And some people are like, they're so anxious around it. It's like, what? Do you know me? I am weird. And they're afraid to let the weird flag fly.
It's the best thing about you, Sam.
Totally. Like, no one questions whether I'm being real. Like, you're like, no, that's it, right? Like, you're not worried if I'm putting something out there I don't believe it, whatever, right? And like, that's the character I choose to play. I'll shoot like, oh, you don't like that I say fuck, or you don't like that I say dick jokes. Okay, I'll let that go, because I know that other people are gonna be like, oh, he's normal, right? Like, I was the first one to take my clients out to dinner, right? Go grab a beer, right? So having things to connect with, right? And I look at this from, is your audience for you guys mostly trainers or
a mix between coaches? There's some, we have some athletes that listen to us, entrepreneurs, people who can really benefit from all of this stuff.
So for anybody out there, it's about having something in common to say, and it's about being able to connect. Let's say we're all sitting in a bar, having a marg or beer or whatever, and water, and someone walks in the door and Josh, you're like, what a douchey looking person. Oh my God, I just want to punch the sour off their face.
I feel like I've said that before a couple times down here.
Not that you guys wear sweatshirts down there, but let's say a layer off, and they had a Syracuse shirt. Oh shit, wait. Hold on, wait, what were you there? right? And now it's like, you just went from thinking that person was the biggest douchebag in the world to like, do you need a moment? Like, do you need to get a number her number? Like, oh, bro. Because it was, and that's what college sports are great, right? Immediately something in common. So now the conversation has weight. There's something to back the conversation into that's not transactional, right? And this is where so many coaches or anybody who sells a product or network, people who are in the game to network, right? Clearly you're in there to get a name and number and stay in contact, whatever,
right.
Is that you're coming into it so promoting the thing, and you haven't earned the time. You haven't earned the relationship. Just as, you might, as a single person, you might go to the bar and maybe look to find some companionship. You're not successful every time, right? So we have to remember that's the same game in networking too. Like, you can't go, like, I'm not going to sell you $1,000 package of training every single time the very first minute I see you, right? Nor are you necessarily even the right person that I are going to work with, maybe, but that doesn't mean you may not know someone or, right? Sure. And so you have to go in playing the long game out of networking in general. Yeah. And so the other flip side of that is you have to also look at what of value do you have to inject into this new relationship? Right? Now, obviously your great personality and who you are, that's tons of value. I'm not trying to demean or demolish anybody's value. However, let's look at it in the context of how it's worked in my career. And that's like through Onnit. Well, when I moved to Austin in 2014, I was a trainer at 24 Hour Fitness. And then I went private for a year and a half, right? Like, I knew who people were, but I didn't move down there with a Rolodex of like, I can call Dre Spina and, Joe DeFranco and Smitty and like Mike Fish, right? Like I can't, whereas now it's like, oh, right. Okay. Right. And so, but when I got down to Onnit, I was able to position myself in a way that allowed me access to the world. So it started off like I was just helping get certs out and t-shirts and coordinating events and making sure people in the back could hear. I wasn't there to teach. I was getting my, at Onnit, I had hello at Onnit and info at Onnit come to my email. So I was getting smashed with emails every day. And like people were like, oh man, I want to come through. And it was like, I'd pass it off to trainers because it wasn't my job.
Right.
Well, as we started bringing in some educators and started to bring in events and doing things, at first it was like, well, John and Shane had kids. So if we have this coach here in town, like I can take you out to dinner. I can go hang out with you. I'll shuttle you around. Like, cause I also took a huge pay cut going into Onnit. So it was like, I can either hang out with Mike Fitch and go to dinner, or I can sit at home by myself and do nothing.
That's right.
Right? Like I'll give up the weekend. Right? So like, I'll go to the cert. I'll just go to the course. Right. Well, you do that for, over a period of time. And then all of a sudden you start going into events. Well, we have like at the event world, I was just the guy at Onnit. Right. And it turned into, well, when you're at NSCA and you got this huge booth, like, oh, no one's around here. Great. I'll swing maces. I'll do some animal flow. I'll jump on my hand. Like, I'll get some people over here. And then it was like, cause I want people to challenge the idea. Like, why would I use a club instead of a barbell? Right. Cause maybe we were trying to get supplements into a school. Maybe we were trying to get fitness equipment, kettlebell. It didn't matter, but it was like, I got to start a conversation and I need you to understand who I am, because with the strength, like we know that people necessarily, the strength world didn't necessarily like Onnit in the beginning. Cause it's like, why would I use this offset lever? This is stupid.
100%.
Stress, blah, 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 blah. And so then it's like, I could go to NSCA and I'll have some strength coach be like, why would I use this club? And I'm like, well, do any of your athletes need to do a horizontal pressing pattern? Yeah. Is there any times where you necessarily aren't locking down the scapula to be able to move? Yeah. Do you ever need to use a sub-max load just so you can, create tension or whatever? Yeah. Great. Try, press this club. And I would wolf it, right? I'd grab like the 35, some days the 45 if I was really, trained up. And I'd press it like, here, try it. And they're like, oh, because all those meathead you don't have a scapula moves. And it's like, oh,
shit.
How heavy is this? And they're like 35 pounds, right? Or I'll hand them the light one. And they're like, well, I go, yeah. Like, oh, by the way, I also used to compete in powerlifting. I trained Jake Arrieta. Right? Like, so there were things that was like, no, I play in your space, right? I'm saying, I didn't say anything against, linear periodization or mechanical stress or progressive overload. I'm just saying, hey, let's honor the fact that we're always not putting the red pedal or the gas pedal down on our athletes, right? So do we need to make them rotate? Should we make them not rotate? Should we make them control their body in space, right? Like that's the game, right? Like as a strength coach, you a trainer, you can't say no to those questions, right? Like you'd be like, and if you did, you'd be like, wow. Ugh,
yeah,
okay,
maybe you shouldn't be coaching anyone.
And it's so big picture that it's like, I'm not saying that I know more about biology than you, right? Like I'm just asking, is this true or not, right? In a not confrontational way, right? But that was the game. Like I was just Sam on it. And like, it took a while, right? It took a good year and a half going to every event for a good 2 years, right? So then all of a sudden it was getting in front of some people. And there was a big event. Wolf and I went to San Francisco and we went to the NorCal Fitness Summit, and it's where I met like John Russin, Mark Fisher, and Perry Nicholson. And like I remember going up to Mark and be like, hey Mark, I would love to take you to dinner while we're here in town. And he's like, yeah, okay. I was like, sweet.
Yeah,
No one's gonna turn down free dinner and order wine and have a glass of wine. He's like, so man, what's your angle? And I was like,
all right.
Wow, right at it, right? And I said, look, dude, if Mark Fisher Fitness wants to bring in an Onnit wholesale account and sell Alpha Brain and protein powder, that's awesome. It's $200 minimum, $250, whatever it was at the time. I go, if that adds value to you, I want to do it for you. I'm here because I want you to know that I support what Mark Fisher does. And me at Onnit, I have resources to support you. Can I send you samples at your event? Can I sponsor the event? How can I use what I have? And so to look at the networking, I hate to say it this way, but let's say you have whoever is an athlete, an actor, actress, like there's this person you have on a pedestal that you want to interact with. Of course it's valuable for you to interact with them. Is it going to be valuable for them to interact with you? And so then it turns into, what way do you have in the door, right? To get in front of Eric Cressy, it was just like, I'm just following their account, right? And then it was like, oh, they break medicine balls all the time because they have dudes who throw 95 miles an hour with a medicine ball. Like, they're going to go through them. And I was like, hey, what's your address? Can I just send you a bunch? And they're like, yep. Boom, send it. Hey, I'm in Boston. Would it be okay if I got an assessment from Eric and just shadow for the day? Yes, come on in, right? And it was like, oh, the beautiful thing about traveling was like, sure, I'm in Boston for work, okay? Do I hang out with my off time? Nope. I'm going to see if I can get lunch with Mike Boyle. Yep. I'm going to see if I can go hang out at Eric Cressy's. I'm going to go hang out with Achieve Fitness. I'm going to go hang out with Tim DeFrancesco and Matthew Ibrahim, right? That's how I was choosing to spend my off time from those events, or using my time and resources at those events. And like, hey, right, I support what you're doing. Here's the resources I have. You want to teach a seminar on it? Great. Come on through. Right. Mm-hmm. And that became, because the seminar game hadn't really taken off yet at that point. Right. And I would argue to say that like Onnit was definitely a catalyst in
100%.
That, right.
100%.
And watching how fast every people came out with courses, because there weren't that many before that.
No, there weren't a ton. Like SFG,
you had a few coaches doing
a couple. Yeah.
Yeah. CPPS, there was RKC and TFPI, right? But like
but not at that level.
Right. And what made Onnit unique was, and this is, especially when we were talking to companies like EXOS, is to look at like, hey, 40% of the people that came through the academy certifications were not trainers by profession. And it's like, wow, that showed that there was a clear interest for people, end user consumers, to want to get and, understand how to move. Right. So the important thing is to look at like, okay, if let's say we take me out of Onnit and that same game is applied, okay, I have a very different level of access of what I can give value to. I can't send you buckets of supplements or kettlebells or volunteer at your events or show up. What would I have had to do? Hey, can I come shadow? Can I just hang out? I'll clean I'll wipe a bench up, whatever that is, right? What would you do to impress that person to give you a chance, right? Like we saw it as kids, right? You hear hey, you just hang around, but it's not sexy to do that, right?
Right.
And so, when you do catch an opportunity, or you have momentum like an Onnit, right? And that for me, I recognize that like I was creating access that Onnit was creating, right? As much as I hate that a lot of people look like experts that are not because of social media, is that like, okay, I come from this world of coaching, right? Like in this strength world. And for me, if I'm going to make sure that I'm in the front of the room, I want to make sure I have a stamp of approval by all these people I've respected over the years, right? So that became my game. It wasn't about how big I could build my platform or even my social media. It was like, oh, I know that, Eric Cressy and Joe DeFranco are, right? Like, I want to make sure that what I'm putting out, they're not going to be like, ew, gosh, I would never send him an athlete, right? So it was less about how cool, it wasn't about my platform. It was like, it's your digital handshake, right? Let me see what this kid's about, right? Real quick. Oh shit, he's talking about like recovery, movement, quality movement, right? Because I know on the flip side of what they're seeing from Onnit is not that, right? And so it was like, oh, I want to make sure like before you get involved in this experience, I want to intercept you and it's like, this is what the message is, right? It's not output driven. It's recovery driven, right? That's the end expression. You should be able to go do those things. You want to go smash the rower and go kettlebells and clubs. That's dope, right? But like, let's not do that if you hurt.
Right.
Right. And like, that was the big message I know I took away from Onnit, right? Because I was that lifter who was like, no, just get stronger, get bigger, get stronger, get bigger. Right. And so, you know, looking at the way, I mean, Onnit was taking off, right? To look at, okay, here's this thing in front of me that's going, I was employee 42. We were a $30 million company at that time, 2015, right? To then leave at over 200 employees. Right, is like massive growth. And this is, you know, Joe Rogan, this height, Aubrey crushing it before the book too. And it was like, oh, if I'm in front of these eyes and I have these kind of eyes on me, like I need to make sure that I am earning them with every single thing, right? So that way it provided, because I think that's the part about networking, right? Like it's easy, like, oh, I got the cookie, right? And then it's like, that ain't the cookie, right? That was the cookie you got right now.
It was a crumb.
It's a crumb, exactly.
It's
and it's like,
the cookie.
Totally. And there's more, right? Like, do you want to, like, so I had the opportunity to build Tim Ferriss's home gym, right? And
amazing.
It was
awesome.
Super cool. And it was like, you know, he offered to pay me. I was like, dude, like this, it came through Onnit, right? And it's like, that would be wrong. 1, 2, it's like, I want you to know that I wanted to help you out. Because the minute it becomes a transaction, it's now exchange of money, right? And that's the thing that personal trainers battle with on the front end. It's like, you got to get them to pay you, right? You got to make it transactional on the front end and get them to respect your time. But the game of selling them is like, I got your back, right? I'm going to be the one that puts my arm around your back and say, hey, it's okay. Like, don't worry, right? We're here. And the game of it. And so with networking, with anyone you meet, like, as you can probably imagine, just this skill set, man, I would pull clients from like Blazer games at the bar, right? Because if we're sitting in the bar, what's the guaranteed topic that comes up? What do you do? Oh, I'm a trainer.
Yeah, they're always trying to talk 100%. About. I'm like in the club, and they're like, "Oh man, you know, I eat healthy." I'm like, "Listen, so much of me wants to be like, listen, I couldn't give a fuck if you're eating a salad or not." Like,
hold my beer.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, good for you. I'm so happy that you know how to eat lettuce. Like, I'm, you know, it's like I can't ever turn it off.
But, and so then it turns into like, well, the difference between that person becoming a client or not is, are you trying to sell them, right? Like, hey, how do I make you feel? Hey, right? And like knowing how to have that trigger of like flipping the script, right? And to take it from a conversation to a solution providing. But you have to look at putting yourself in situations to meet people where you're going to have target rich information to talk about, right? So on one end, like I mentioned, there's that you have something of offer, like an Onnit or a resource, right? A company, whatever, or you got to go out and hustle it. Right? You got to go out there and get in front of people. Well, now this is where I, like, if you guys have ever listened to me or read my blogs, it's been like, I talk a lot about storytelling and the narrative arc. And because we as humans don't give a shit about how much you know about biology, we care about how you make me feel. Right. When I talk to you.
We're innately storytelling beings.
It's a big, like that's how we're narrative creatures. Right? Like it's storytelling around the campfire is the TV.
That's how we survived. That's how we survived hundreds of thousands of years.
It's true.
And to be able to have something of like, okay, if you play WoW and World of Warcraft and you're a trainer, a fitness person.
I had no clue about that reference before you extrapolated. I was like, wow, what the hell is WoW?
or Fortnite, or you're just let's say you're a super gamer, esports, right? That's why esports are so popular. And because more people can play NBA 2K Live than they can basketball.
Play actual basketball,
Actual basketball, right?
So true.
So
I can't dunk in real life.
Insert your, I hate to say flow state, but insert where you're good at talking.
I know, such a trigger.
Right? If you're good at cooking, like you really love cooking, right? And you're like, oh yeah, I love to cook shit, you know? Well, get yourself involved with a bunch of people who like cooking. And now it becomes, oh, you're the fitness person with a bunch of people who like a community of people who cook, right? For me, when I was a trainer at 24 Hour Fitness, I played on a wood bat men's baseball league. So wives and girlfriends. I volunteered at 2 different nonprofits, put sessions in the bucket, investors, right? Like you go hang out with your clients and let's say you meet one of their coworkers and it's, oh my gosh, I've been hearing about you for blah, blah, blah. And they know like details about your training and they're like, they're asking to train with you, right? They wouldn't have come up and talked to you, right? You know, that person who's like, oh yeah, you're avoiding me. Right? Like, or like, oh, I don't normally eat this way as they're like eating a chip in front of you. And they're like, you think they're judging them. Like, I didn't notice you were even there until you said something. Right? Like, but people feel that. So put yourself in scenarios that allow you to be successful. Right. And that from within your network, if you're in fitness or a hairstylist or nails or any sort of service provider, someone trying to meet more people, if you don't like sports, don't go hang out at a sports bar for a networking event. right? Like that's not the type of person that's going to get down.
That's right.
Right? Go to a cooking class, and then it's like, start slow. Like, oh, what do you do? Like, oh, I'm a trainer. Oh, really? Wow. What are you doing here? Like, I just love cooking. Right? Like, are you trying to do a healthy thing? Like, not necessarily. I just love cooking. Oh, you cook unhealthy food too? Well, I mean, I just cook food, right? And they're like, wait, I didn't know you could eat pasta and be a fitness trainer. Wait, I would, and now you have the wall broken down because the vehicle wasn't fitness. The vehicle was that you both shared cooking.
Yeah.
Right?
Mendes talks to me about that. I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat as you, right? Where I'm like building out my big ticket, online program. And at first I was having trouble trying to reach people. And Mendes like, dude, do you like fashion? Like, why don't you just look through like fashion blogs and fashion Facebook groups and, engage with those people? I'm like, I never even thought about that. When you're so focused on like, well, I'm a trainer and I'm so boxed in here. It's like, well, we're actually much more nuanced as human beings than even people a lot. Like when I go up, people are like, oh, you're not in like gym shorts. Like, nope. I do wear real clothes. Like, and it's like,
be surprised that people will engage more in your content. That's not fitness related.
Oh man,
being a personal trainer or coach, that's the content that's going to create the connection for you to have the conversations with those people and then actually serve them, and that's what I tell people all the time, the coaches I work with, is like, you're relatable, like you said, find what it is that you love to do, your hobbies, and go into those spaces and go look for those people that you want to hang out with and talk to and just chill. And literally those guards will go down and that's your in right there. And you did it in such an organic, natural way. Like you said, there's always the network and the business purpose behind it, but even you will feel good about it because you felt like, man, I wasn't trying to push anybody on anything. It just,
because that's always awkward, right? That's always awkward. And you're like you were mentioning earlier, like you got to make money, you got to make the sale, but there's a way you can go about it where it's much more of a human characteristic than it is like a financial characteristic.
And then the other thing too, like I tell people all the time, like, and you're an amazing example of it. Just be there. That's what I remember one of the biggest things I learned being young was when somebody had told me, I was actually an old manager of mine back in LA Fitness. And he said, if you want opportunities, you want to meet the right people, he goes, just be there. When an opportunity arises and you have nothing else to do, like you said, I'd rather be doing this with Mike Fish or this person rather than being at home doing nothing. Just be there. Just be there. Be present. Just go. What's the worst that can happen? What? Nothing, nothing later on happens or the relationship doesn't end up working. Okay, great. That's the worst. But I got to hang out at least for a while and had some nice dinner and some good food to eat. And the best thing that can happen is you build an awesome relationship with somebody that's going to last you for a long time or forever. And now that becomes a solidified friendship that now you guys can hang out in the future, help each other out and do some amazing things.
And it's, I think a lot of people look at it as like, oh, I do that thing. And the world we live in because of technology, which is amazing, especially doing things like this, is that if we're sitting down and having a conversation and you're looking at your fucking phone every 2 seconds or your watch or looking around, like you're not engaging in the conversation, it's like, what am I doing here?
Point?
Yeah.
Right. Yep. And so like I was recently asking just a few of like my old partners and teammates, like what they thought, having spent so much time with him, what I did really well that was beyond like the charisma, like the thing. And actually everybody came back with like, when you sit down and talk to someone, you make them feel like you give a shit because you give them your attention. Right. Like we may not be best friends, but like, if I'm going to sit and talk to you, I'm not going to like
100%.
Right. Like let's fucking engage.
You're being intentional about it.
And that is something I think in this world right now is not done very well with social media and everything around that. If you find someone that you actually jive with, I'm not saying you got to like take them to dinner and try to whatever, right? But like you can still have a positive interaction, right? And leave an impact because who knows? Like I've been stopped multiple times in restaurants where it's like, oh, did you used to teach a boot camp at 10 a.m. on Saturdays at 24 Hour Fitness? I was like, yeah. Oh my God, I used to take that. I loved it. And I was like, that's so dope. You just came up and said hi, right? A, it makes me look really cool right now, but B, it's like that, you remembered me, right? Like in that setting that I made an impact, even in that. Was I detailed coaching their squat? No. But if I gave them a positive interaction with fitness, and for the coaches out there, right, we all start as day one, week one with one cert, one whatever. We all have to start there. And you don't have 90 certs or all these things to back up and say, this is why I'm a credible source in this industry. You can say, you know what? I'm young, I'm learning, but you know what I'm going to do is I am going to make fitness the best experience for you that you've ever had. The relationship you have with your body is going to be different from here on out. If I don't know a question, I'm going to learn. I'm going to go out and I'm going to ask the questions from people I need to learn from. But just know that what I'm here to do is help you, not during the times when you're excited like this, but during the day when the world is taking a crap on your head and you have all the reasons in the world to not either work out or not eat well or whatever. And sometimes that's me giving you a little swat in the butt. Hey, get it going. But sometimes it's an arm around on the shoulder and say, hey, you're okay. I got you. You'll be okay. You'll come out of this, right? Because either way, it's that support. That's what a coach does. A coach develops confidence and autonomy so you can be successful, right? They don't try to control. You can't control DK Metcalf on the football field. You just let him go beat him.
You
right?
saw that? You saw that? You saw that chase down?
Freak, right? Like, oh my God, you ran 22 miles.
Hey, I don't know, but there's been a lot of high speed run. I think after Daniel Jones
oh my God,
ran that run, everybody's been wanting
what
to
an embarrassment for all of us white people out there. You know, just like you can't expect us to ever be athletic if we're doing shit like that on the football field. Like, fuck. Come on, man.
He was moving though. He's probably never run that fast in his life.
But listen, you got like
he got so fast he tripped up.
That's like getting someone ready to make this like buy your product and then being like, I'm good. I'm good. I think you're fine.
But I'm gonna give it to him. Hey, he supposedly ran faster than Lamar Jackson did on the field.
He's got some wheels. Listen, that's the one thing about some of us. It's like we're a little more athletic than we look. But
some of us.
Yeah, I know. I mean, to your point, like him and I talk about it all the time when we talk to younger coaches. They're like, "Oh, you guys are still going to a lot of certs, and why are you doing?" We're like, "Listen, are we going to get some information out of the cert? Yeah. What am I looking forward to more than taking the cert is like the dinner with the instructors after the cert. Like that's." I go to certifications to maybe learn like one or two new things or pick up a couple of cues from people like you. But what I'm looking for more is after the cert to learn about who that person is, how they got to where they were. Because if I'm at that cert, chances are I at least want to do something that person who's instructing has done in their life. So how am I going to figure out how to, use the tools that they had in front of them to my own advantage, right? And I can't do that while someone's instructing. I have to do that afterwards. I have, like you said, I have to authentically make a connection with them and give them my attention and ask them good questions so that I can build that network, but also, show, as you mentioned, that I am one of those quality coaches that's out there to really help people because I'm doing more than just what's expected. Every trainer is expected to go to a certification, right? Like it's just part of what if you're not taking continuing education, like just get out of the field, right? So what are you going to do? What are you going to do to separate? Like some of the best times I've ever had with coaches, like when you and Carmen Morgan and I went to what's that? Snooze, right? Like I still remember that, and I still tell people like, now Carmen and I are a lot closer than I think we would have ever been if I didn't have that interaction with her, right? She was down in Miami with Ashley not too long ago. We all went to dinner and hung out like all weekend. That never would have happened if I never went to breakfast with you two, right?
And it's like, it's that, right? Like, so when you're also in the networking game, a lot of it for me, like I didn't have juice to give you, but like, oh, you haven't talked to this person? Oh, you should meet this person. They're really dope. And then you can become the spider web of a bunch of people as to how'd you meet Sam? How'd you meet Sam? Right. Or
I love being the guy that knows the person that you need, like I come from a small town too. And people ask me, I mean, he's asked me too, like how do you network so well? It's like you were mentioning, right? It was how I grew up. Like if you didn't know the person in the town that had the lawn mowing service or that, owned the gas dock for your boat, like what were you doing in the town? People would look at you like, what are you insane? Like you don't know someone,
Yeah.
So I've taken that and kind of ran with it. And, it's kind of worked out for me, but I think like, I'm also just not afraid to talk to people, not to be like you were saying, I'm not afraid to be like, well, what do you do? How, tell me like, even if I'm at a restaurant and they're at the table next to me, I'd be like, I don't mean to bother you if it's cool to talk about this. Like, so tell me a little bit about like the processes that you take and really dive into like the nuances other than just like, well, how much money do you make? Okay. Right. Do you drive a nice car? Okay. I see you have a Breitling on. Like, that's cool. Like, I don't give a shit about that. I care about like what you're actually doing, and how you're doing it.
And why do you care about it? Right. Why is this something that means something to you? Right. Like, cause it's not about that thing. It's about what happened in your life around that thing and what you're doing and why, so there's so much to it. And that's just, I wish it was that easy just to be a good human and just want to go connect and learn and take an interest in other people. But it is that.
I think people get scared too. I think people always think that, oh my God, what if I go to them, they're like, why are you talking to me? I think sometimes people expect people not to be friendly or nice, and they kind of self-doubt and they kind of create that doubt. Well, I doubt that they're going to be nice to me. So maybe I shouldn't talk to them, but why? Like, what's the worst if they're not nice to you? Okay, great to meet you. Bye. That's the worst that can happen, so it's just like, you got to put yourself and give yourself that opportunity, because by just doing that and put yourself there and actually going out there and making that conversation, you don't know what's on the other side for you. You create a beautiful relationship that can stir into something amazing later on. And like I said, the worst is, okay, no, great, move on. There's so many more people in the world that you can connect with. So, I think a lot of people have that issue where it's just like, it's hard for them to even just make the connection, or even want to even put themselves in a place to make connections. Because like you said, going back, they don't either know what to say, or they're scared what the person's going to tell them. And they don't want to feel shitty or ashamed, or feel like, oh my God, this person doesn't want to talk to me.
Right. And one of the hardest people that I think we all encountered is that the one upper, right, is always the perpetual, really hard person to interact with. But really, that person's close, right? Like, they're trying to engage. Here's how I'm kind of like that. It just comes out like, well, look what I've done better than you.
Yeah,
right?
I used to be that person. It took a lot of years of refining to be like, okay, maybe you need to at first, maybe you can throttle that up, and then you got to throttle it back and start asking more questions about, get them intrigued into who you are, and then start paying attention to what the fuck they're doing.
Yes. Yep. And there's a time and place to use both strategies, right? Like, sometimes you do need to look like an expert, right? Like, if you don't come out swinging, looking like a boss, like, that's what that person's looking for out of you. Is like,
there's
if that
nothing wrong with that either. There's nothing wrong with that. There's a reason why you've obtained all that knowledge and growth, and why not put it out? Like, you've done it. Like, why not? And obviously, like you said, there's always a way to do it. Right. There's an arrogant way to do it, and there's a way of doing it of like, hey, you're confident in what you've done, and you can provide value, and show it. Show it.
Well, at the end of the day, there's 8 billion people in the world.
Yeah.
Would you be happy selling 1 million people something for $5?
100%.
100%.
Every time.
Every day.
Every time.
If you got a million, I ask people that, like, are you stupid?
If you got a million people, I got a $50 product to sell them. I promise you. I'll come up with it tomorrow.
And so it's like, wait, why are you busy? Why are you trying to impress 8 billion people? You don't need to impress 8 billion people. You only need to impress 1 million people. Right. Which I know that number sounds daunting, but it's like, look at the dude who make the shake weight. Like, sure, you can make fun of the guy for making a jerk off toy, but that dude's going, yeah, okay, I made $1 billion on that thing. I don't give a shit. Right. Like, he was just like,
even South Park shouted him out,
So for you, if you're like and that's why today's social media marketing strategy works. Like, oh, you want to combine music and training? It works. Right. Because all you got to do is not suck as a human and offer some sort of value. And it's not even that hard. Like, you don't need to be like, so, like, I get caught up being like, oh, like, I really had a hard time wanting to release my Be Less Unfit program, because it was like version 1 just was not that good for what I thought, right? Because I had Sean Heisen go over it, and he was like, here, make it. And I'm like, oh, okay, it needs a lot of work. And it's like, but I'm having people do it, and it's like, they're like, no, it's great. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I forgot. Like, in comparison to what else is out there, it's probably pretty good. Right. And it's like getting okay with that, getting, like, hey, you got to start and not having that. So I understand. I hate to make it sound like networking is easy, doing all this stuff's easy, right? And it's not.
But it can become easy. Yeah. It can become with the reps, just like anything else.
So I got to tell people, you got to start with what you have, because what you have is plenty.
That's it. That's it.
Because, and at the end of the day, like, even more than now than ever, it's like, even what you have, like, dude, most people carry a brand new either Android or an iPhone, and those iPhone Androids, they all have 4K quality. Even the lowest phones made today have 4K quality. It's crazy, so unless you get one of those go pay by phones. But
think about getting a flip phone. Going back to the Razor.
Right. But even then, like, you can just literally get your phone and start shooting some stuff. And it's just like, that's more than enough,
yep.
And that's it, and then just the context of what you write and put out, that's what counts. That's the value. That's how you can educate and put value out there at first, and then once you, build your stuff up, and once you get some neck in the game and you start building your business and you start making some money and your relationships get stronger, then you can say, okay, where can I up my game a little bit? Okay, cool. I could put a little bit more towards, marketing it better, getting some better video graphics and some cooler stuff. And maybe I can get a better camera. Now I can actually get a camera with a tripod, but you got to start with what you got, because at the end of the day, even the biggest players in the game started with nothing and started with what they just had.
That's it. 100%. Right. And I think that's just being comfortable with that. Right. And I know that's not easy to be comfortable in your skin, but like, here's what I enjoy doing. I'm just going to put myself in situations where I'm going to meet those kind of like-minded people. That's why it was so easy to hang out with Onnit people. Like any sort of person you met within that ecosystem was like, you knew they were about it in some way, right? And getting better, right? You could, oh, you swing mace? Oh, cool. Right? There was instantly something to talk about, right? And you knew the attitude of that person because it would also get flushed out. Like it's pretty easy to watch that person not really get pulled into the system because like you weren't about that type of personality. So, you know, networking, yeah, it's, if you don't have a service of value or a product to like something to help, right? It's got to just be like, you are the value, right? And don't try to impress people that don't matter for you, right? But also knowing like, hey, what can I got to learn. So how many people can I learn from?
So Sam, I mean, you talked about your program again. I want to dive a little bit into that before we wrap things up. How are you helping people become less shitty? I mean, that's one of your phrases that I love saying, right? So how are you with this program, right? How are you helping people become less shitty?
And wait, is the program called the Less Shitty Program?
I think you should come out with a spinoff if it's not though.
So it started off because I travel so much and like, for me, like, and I was just talking to Adam Fight about this. I was like, yeah, like I didn't care if I got fat because I was traveling. I was in the road. I was like, it just never bothered me. For me as a undersized kid, by the time I got into lifting, it was so nice not to be, oh, you're little, tiny, look how small you are. It was like, I'd rather be strong and fat than little and like, you know, putting that space. And not, you know, just given the times, like when you grow up as a little Asian kid within a town of a blue collar white community, it's like the only way you get attention is if you take it, because you know what I mean? So it's like, I need to come out with this personality. I need to demand it because otherwise it's just going to get pushed off to the side. Right. So, you know, going in, that's what fitness for me coming out of college, like I was really good at drinking beer, right? Like I'm not saying my beer pong winning percentage was good, but I had a lot of fun. So, right. Like, and so for me coming in, it was just well-timed, like life things. Right. But coming into it, like I got in because I fell in love with like powerlifting and Olympic lifting and strong person competitions because I saw the connection it had to athletics. Right. Oh, wow. If you do this, that builds this asset that makes you good out here. Right. And like that, you know, and like you watch the world of professional sports where you watch these superhuman people perform superhuman acts under unfathomable circumstance. You're like, yeah, I just watched a 6'4", 240-pound dude run 23 miles an hour and chase someone down. Right. You're like, any of you who think you can play in the NFL, you can't. Right. Like, let's just put that out right now. Like you will hate every minute of that. But, you know, for me coming in, I didn't come from a hard science major background. So I didn't have this deep chemical, biological connection to it. Not because I don't find the value in it, but because I was looking at it purely from application, right? Oh, the quad, yeah, that extends the knee, but like increasing my quad strength will help here, or right in my lifting, or this works my quads, right? And so like, as I started talking, as you know, I wasn't a fitness person. So as I'm talking to more people and like sharing what I learned, you start picking up what people are really asking and what is really getting lost. And I think it's important at this point to tell people, like, if you're a trainer or a coach in any capacity and are certified, we're not in the fat loss industry. We're in the fitness industry. Go turn on My 600 Pound Life on TLC and watch the ads and the way the ads are said to you. Very different message than even the lowest level, most out of clue trainer we've all met, right? Is like, they're at least still promoting within the system of like workout, train, strength train, yada, yada. And so, you know, training for me when I was doing it, it was like, sure, I like it. It's a great time to give an experience to people and hopefully change their relationship with fitness, or at least like, I love nothing more than when my former clients text me and like, oh, my new gym complimented my squat. I'm like, wow. That's fucking right. They better, right? Like, we worked hard on that shit. Right. And it's like, make sure they know who I am. Right. And so,
put some respect on it.
Right. But it's fun to still have that engagement, right? Like, oh yeah, new coach is like, you've clearly lifted before. She's like, oh yeah. And that's a great feeling to know that it wasn't just like, cause we've all had it. A client's like, oh, you've had trainers for years. What have you done? Yeah. Okay. You've done that kind of training. You don't know, you can't tell me anything. You just, yeah, he made me do this and that hurt. And I didn't like this and I got hurt, right? Like that's the story we all get. So as I started, you know, going from the mechanical stress, periodized programming, like lifting centric style training, to then getting in front of Onnit and like going through that submax, recovery driven, movement capacity, and then starting to inject FRC and animal flow and all these other inputs of people, and watching all this content come in. It was like, whoa, there's a lot of information.
Yeah.
And then yet my friends who are, you know, I'm 34, my friends who are in their 30s that have 2 kids that are trying to, like, yeah, they want to work, and they might have used to go to the gym. They used to like crush CrossFit or spin classes. And now with 2 kids and a work at home and school at home, like, you ain't crushing it. Why? Because you never learned principles, right? Like, all these coaches and marketers and fitness products market off selling virtue in that, well, if you do this sequencing of crap for this amount of time, you're going to look this way. And it's like, well, of course people want to look like that. And then it's like, well, and sure, that person might alter their life for 90 days and do this DVD and follow along. And like, I feel great. And but then nothing changed. And so then it's like, well, I guess I'll just do that next, do it again. So you do the DVD thing again. And it's like, sure, I'm not saying don't do them. They're fine, right? But the fact that all you did was build reliance on, like, it wasn't the fact that you did 20 squats and 10 push-ups in 60 seconds, right? Like, I could give a shit, right? Personally, I care that you do them well and that you do them that don't hurt you and that promote longevity and that you can work hard at them. So now it turns into, you know, having been on it, and I had so many times where I train someone that I don't train them after that multiple times, right? It's like, oh, you just want the Onnit experience. And I don't have time to give you an FMS or an FRA or go through this thing. Like, I got to do it through the warm up. I got to do it through the joint. Oh, that doesn't move. Great. We're doing half kneeling overhead pressing. You don't know that you were going to do bottom, whatever, but like, I got to see that. And so watching that, I also realized that, like, you know, getting into fitness in my 20s, when we start going through the corporate ladder and, you know, our friends who don't work in fitness, like, it's like a mystery. And you're like, and even there's a ton of information, right? And they might know bits and pieces. Everybody knows enough to, like, but everybody makes it great the enemy of good. If I can't go this hardcore, why even try? Okay. So if we're in this spot, we're like, a lot of information. I'm not trying to know enough to coach. There's so much information. I don't know what the fuck to do. Well, this thing's saying this, and then this thing's saying this. When it's like, okay, now people have home gyms. They got stuff going around. It's like, bro, it is not about goblet squats, right? And if you only, like, sure, you might squat 500 pounds, but like, you only got a 16 kilo kettlebell. Cool. Hold it bottoms up style with a single rack. And I want you to go for 6 seconds, slow down and hold for 4 seconds and then stand up. That was really brutal. Hard. Yep. Yeah. Cool. Right. Like, and I just made up numbers, but it's like, whoa, that made that feel really hard. It's like, great. That's all I'm trying to get out of you. I'm not saying that that's the final solution or this is the only thing, but how do I get you to understand, like, oh yeah, my back doesn't feel good today. So instead of squatting, I'm going to do this. Right. And so Ryan is, he edits he's Aubrey's podcast manager person. And he used to do mine for Fitness Break Room. And I stayed with him and Amy when I was in Austin training Jake last winter. And Ryan would go to Planet Fitness at like 10 p.m. With his brother and just work out. And this dude sat in every single Onnit podcast and Aubrey podcast for 4 years. Right. So you hear a lot of shit around fitness and health and everything else. And he just walks up and he goes, hey man, how do you know what to do when you walk in the gym? And I was like, what a great question. How can I give this to you in like 5 minutes? Right? Like, hey, don't change anything you're doing. Just add an extra set. Do it and take total time of your workout, right? Like, change a variable, do it single arm, do it with a tempo. He's like, that's it. I go, it's different than what you're doing, right? You want to do leg press because you like it? Great. So instead of just hammering out 3 sets of 10, do 3 sets of 12. Right? Do 4 sets of 10, do single leg, do 3 seconds slow and fast, right? And it was like, man, if you like just do a set of exercises for 3 weeks and then switch it up, because so many people who would, like, we look at the model of group fitness, it's like, oh, that's exciting, it's fun, I want to go to bar with my girlfriends and yoga, and it's a community thing. CrossFit really showed us that. But then it was like, well, yeah, because it's not that good of training. Like, it's like, oh, I'm bored.
Yeah, we talked about the muscle confusion paradigm with Shane.
You know, right, but like, I mean, but that makes sense, right? Like, that total logic makes sense around, like, yeah, you should do different shit like that, because it is like, there is that learning curve element to where it's like, if I do something for the first time, it's way more energy than it was a second time. 100. Downfall is like, well, when you're working sub-max loads, you're not really working that hard, like, and you never really recover, and all you're doing is smashing the stress machine, which you don't need. You're gonna feel like shit, and then you're gonna fall off the wagon. And so for me, it's like, all right, go to bar for 3 weeks with your girlfriends, just knowing that, like, you're going to get bored. So what tools do you have when you come home? Like, all right, I got some kettlebells at home. Great. I'm just going to, every time I walk by the kitchen, do some squats. Or it's like, at least I know how to squat, right? So when my friends would train with me, it was always under the angle, not that they don't want to train with me 3-4 days a week, but it was always the angle of teaching them so they could feel confident lifting the weights by themselves. They're like, I don't want some dude trying to come and press me and like blah blah blah. And like, so I just know I'm doing it. And I was like, yeah, okay, I'll teach you how to do that. We'll lift. And
which as a trainer, which as a coach is like I hate working out with my friends. Then it just turns into me coaching them, and I get like I get a 15-minute fucking warm up in, and then
that's it.
Yeah.
Right. That's why I don't work out with people. Like people are like, hey, you want to get together and work out? I'm like, nope. No. Right. Because I won't not be able to coach. Right. It's either I'm going to coach or
I see your knees buckling. I'm going to fucking squirm and throw up. So I need to fix it. Or
yeah. And it's like, that's the game. Right. So I wanted to create something for people that demystified how complex fitness is. Not that it's not complex. It's very complex. I don't know anything really. Right. Like when you get down to the cellular level of like people, what they're doing now, you're like,
I'm a
that's
child.
What you're tracking now. I don't know anything. Right. But at the base level of what fitness is for the modern human in where we live, can we teach patterns and exercises? So for me, I also looked at, because I haven't been shredded my entire life and playing this character, but I've always, I've been fit and I work out and I teach certs and I work with athletes, that it's like, oh, here's a dude who lifts a lot of weight that's promoting using lighter weight. That's saying, don't go as hard. That's just do what feels good. That holds different than if I was a skinny little dude that wasn't very strong, right? It's like, well, of course you're promoting mobility because you're weak as fuck, right? Like, I'd promote it too, right? In Olympic lifting, there's a funny statement, like, if you guys have Olympic lifted, it's like out there's always like a little Chinese girl that's snatching your back squat.
Just murking it. Yeah.
It's true. You're like, oh, sweet. That's my back squat. Yeah, okay. Like, you're just really strong. And so, looking at teaching the everyday, my friends, like, and that's why I imagine, like, what would I tell my nurses? What would I tell my buddies who are sales reps and beer sales reps or work at Nike? And it's like, hey, 10-minute walk around campus, that's a huge win, right? Sitting quietly for 5 minutes and like taking a minute for yourself, huge win. Drinking more water, huge win. And what I found was people would respond to the be less fat thing that I would tag, right? I had people who like, it hangs in our office, right? As our break room, I'm like, that's dope,
that's
right?
So
like, it's like, yeah, hey, it's just a reminder, don't eat the muffin. Not saying muffins are bad, you can't have a muffin, but it's like, if you're trying to like not gain 15 pounds over the holidays, don't eat the muffins at work.
Eat the muffin. Yeah, right.
Right? And so I would do it, especially working in fitness where it's like, yeah, sometimes I'm tagging a burger. Sometimes I'm tagging a salad, right? It's my goal to not eat 2 meals in a row like an asshole, right? Like, I'm not saying I don't do that, but like, it's also a choice. I don't have guilt over it necessarily. Right. So it was, and then it got into the point where like, I'm using it. I was just doing it for fun, right? Traveling, whatever. And I even asked people, I was like, oh, I don't want the fat shaming thing, right? Like, I'm fat, right? I don't give whatever, right? Like, I'm fine. But that's the angle, because that's not who I am at all, right? Like, I'm not a spiteful, like, what the fuck, right? I want the best for you, and I might push you harder than you want, but it's not out of like, you're less of a valuable person because of this situation. Right. And so then I switched it to, I was playing around with names, and the be less thing just kept working, right? It was like, oh, be less fat, be less shitty, be less of an asshole, be less dehydrated, be less tired, be less sober, right? And it was like, people were like, those are funny. I like that one. That was a new one, right? And it was like, wow. And so now you have a hook, right? Oh, that's clearly what people were asking for. I'm not trying to like go be a trainer and do 4 sets of small off, right? And smash my legs for the next year, right? Like, I just want to know I'm doing it right. If they have kids, they want to know that they're getting it in effectively. So that way they are not feeling guilt over taking time away from their kids or their jobs or their spouses, and they don't want to do things wrong. They don't want to get hurt. So there's a precaution, right? So then it was like, okay, especially going into this entrepreneurship world of my online coaching, is where do I live, right? And not because I couldn't do it. It was like, how do I want to talk to people, right? And what's the experience I want you to feel? And that's when it made it really easy. Like, man, like, this person is not trying to know everything in the world about strength training, but doesn't mean that an interview with Dr. John Russin isn't valuable. But like, let's look at it like, hey, like, this is where it lives, right? And like, what resistance training is, right? We don't want you to resist in an unwarranted position, right? But then that message got hammered too long, and that's why the mobility thing is really popular right now. But like, you guys get it. Yeah. So it was just kind of making fitness simple that gave people permission to not necessarily have to go ham, right? Like, I'm not saying you're going to get shredded in 2 weeks. It's like, you're just going to, like, you do this for 12 weeks, you're going to be less unfit. right? So every
You'll
day
feel
you get a
better.
daily lifestyle goal, right? And this ranges from drink an extra glass of water to go on a 5-minute walk, to eat an extra serving of vegetables, to journal, to cook a meal, try a new recipe, go try a new activity. And getting people to give themselves a break as it relates to trying new habits, right? Sure. Do I think soda is the best thing in the world for you? No, right? Like, yeah, the diet soda thing, calories, yada, yada. But like, if it changes your relationship with water, I want you to drink more water, right? But people go into it like, I'm going to give up soda. I'm going to quit drinking alcohol. I'm going to go paleo. I'm going to clean out my cupboard. And then 2 days in, and then life takes a shit on your head because we have real lives. And you're like, I can't do that. What? Oh, man, it's futile. Why even try anymore?
Yeah,
and it's
pizza,
like, that
wing, beer,
sucks.
everything. Yeah.
And then they go ham. So then we end up in this 2 weeks on, 9 months off,
Roller
2 weeks
coaster.
on, 9 months off. And it's like, how many times do we hear our friend, like, I'm just trying to get back. I just want to be consistent. And it was like, you know what? I'm someone who doesn't like to feel boxed in. You want to tell me I have to do something like, every single day, you're going to make me hold a list and do it by the checklist. I'm like, I will fight your ass, right? Like, I will kick and scream and I will do it my way because I self-select just fine. Right. I will self-select to go for a walk. I will self-select to go sit quietly. I will self-select to read. But when it's stressful to do it, won't do it, right? Like, oh, too many things. So instead it was like, look, don't try to, like, that's a strategy for some people. Like, okay, I'm going to anchor the habit. Like, I'm going to drink a water first thing in the morning before I get out of bed. I'm going to leave a glass. Like, that's great. I hope people do that. But the minute someone isn't successful at that, the guilt they feel, like, fuck, man, like I can't even get 9 days in a row. What the fuck? So instead it's like every day you get something different over 12 days or over 12 weeks. And then it's like, oh, wow, you know what? Drinking water feels good, right? Or, wow, I really like that sitting quietly thing. And it's to spoon feed people different styles of lifestyle habits. It's like, oh, that's an easy win, because what breeds success faster than success, right? Get you to self-select. Oh, that makes me feel good. I want to do more of that. Oh, I want to do more of that. I want to do more of that. I want to do more of that. So, they get a 12-week program, right? It's block style programming. And it's, total body strength. You get 2 total body strength days. You get a body weight mobility day, little FRC, little animal flow, little joint by joint stuff. And then there's an optional arms, abs, and glutes day, right? Because
Gotta have that.
Glute bridges, bicep curls, and tricep extensions. Like, I mean, ain't no one want to not look good, right? And then there's an activity day. It's like, because I'm like, you know what? What good is being able to bench press 500 if you can't get on the ground and crawl with your kid, right? Or you can't help your buddy move. So it's like Saturdays or whatever day you want to do it is go play tennis, go to that CrossFit class, go to that thing to expose you to it, right? Like the strength training days are Monday, Wednesday, right? So you'll have time to recover. And it's like, look, it's not, and it's based off RPE, right? So if you don't have a lot of weight at home and you only got a 12 kilo kettlebell, you bet your ass I can make that feel like an 8 RPE on squats, right?
1,000%.
You won't like me, right? In fact, you'll be like, what was
Sam's
that?
an asshole.
Right. And it's like, if we can show people that skill to where it's cool, that's why the sexy things on Instagram do well, right? Like, because it seems novel. But it's like, how I want to make doing a single rack slow templed squat really cool, right? Like, not because it's cool, but it's like, oh, that's manageable, right? Like, if you're standing in the kitchen standing in your kitchen cooking dinner, or every time you go to pick up your baby, do 10 squats, right? Like, getting you in the understanding of like, okay, what do I have? Okay, she won't go down because it's nap time, but she'll stay if I move. Great. Super slow tempo squats. Hey, I didn't get the 4 sets of 8 in my goblet squats, but like I held a 25-pound moving object for 20 minutes, right? You're like, dope. Did you do some, like, oh, and that's the game that we learn, right? It's like, yeah, some days I don't get a training in. Sometimes I don't feel good. Sometimes I do this. Like, I have to make adjustments.
Yeah.
And that's the, like, people don't realize that even the most shredded people on the beach are like, yeah, either you're miserable because you hate the lifestyle you live to maintain that, or you feel like shit. And it's like, most people just want to feel good. And if I think, and I'm sure you guys can relate to this too, like, I think a lot of people probably operate at like 45%, 50%. And if we get you to like 55%, you're like,
holy shit.
Right? Like, not drinking 10 Diet Cokes and only drinking 5 and drinking a couple glasses of water. You're like, what, man, I got a pep in my step. I'm like, yeah, because you're not dehydrated. Like, you probably feel good, right? And not saying, stop drinking Coke. That's not the early win, right? Getting that smoker to quit smoking is not the early win. So there are so many easy wins that we as coaches give people beyond, right? Like the programming, right? And even doing remote coaching consults with people, it's like, yeah, like we're gonna do shit. Like, don't worry, you'll get to do plenty of cool movement, whatever. But like that, if that's the goal coming into it, that's not the goal, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're training to get good at powerlifting, go train with a power lifter, right? Sure, could I write a program for you? Yeah, for sure. But like the majority of people that we work with in a 24 Equinox setting, professional setting, they're not that.
Yeah.
And that's where I was like, wow, okay, this is not going to have a message around go big, go hard, go home. It's not going to be around you have to know all these things. In fact, my goal is like to educate you, to teach you what trainers know, right? Or also on the, you know, from a marketing angle, it's here's the way to get like a real workout that's meant for like a real world scenario, not like, oh yeah, of course that workout's like crazy intense and like that works for people sometimes. But when you're a new mom or dad and you got to work from home, all of a sudden you're like, I don't have 90 minutes every day to smash this thing, right? So getting people to feel comfortable. And so the Be Less Unfit program is a super approachable just relationship to lifting, right? And so I want you to, you know, utilize the YouTube videos I've shot and know like, oh, if I'm in a hotel gym or I don't, like my leg doesn't feel good, instead of doing a goblet squat, do a single leg body weight deadlift. Right? Whatever it is, like, and knowing how to make those substitutions out, right? Which we do so easily, right? It's like, oh yeah, they never knew that we switched them out from a overhead press to a half kneeling overhead press because it's like, yeah, I just watched you. You just told me your shoulder felt like shit because you slept like shit, and it didn't feel good to go up here. Today's overhead day, right? Because we've been lifting overhead. Great, you're not gonna notice. You're gonna, oh wow, this was fun, dope, cool, right? Like, and that's the secret sauce because instead of missing that workout because you feel guilty for not doing the thing prescribed and missing the next 9 months because one day turns into 9 days, it's like, yeah, it wasn't perfect, but like 100% better than what I should have gotten in, right? And that's the goal, is to give people that grace of life is tough, man. Like as a trainer, like I've traveled the world teaching trainers and I wasn't always in great shape, right?
Life is shitty, so how do we make it less shitty?
Be less shitty, right? That's it.
Yeah. No, I really do think that it's, you know, in the field in general, right, is kind of bringing the smaller wins to the forefront instead of making the ultimate goal always the tunnel vision viewpoint, right? Sam, we are well over an hour here, man. It's, you know, feel like, yeah, it's same here, man. We could talk forever. But I want to say thank you, you know, for coming on, and
I really appreciate it.
And you know, always have a great time talking to you, man. It's never boring. You know, it's always very interesting. Where can people, before we end this, right? Where can people find you on social media, your website, all that good stuff?
Yeah, Pogue, Pogue 86 is Instagram. It's where I'm probably most consistent. Facebook gets a little love, but it's binary. And website, sampogue.com. Is there, and that's where I have everything about me, what I've got going on, and obviously trying to drive traffic that direction and playing that game. And so those are the two best places to find me. But like all social media platforms, I'm there, right? Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter.
And brother, in one sentence, what's the biggest piece of advice you can leave off to all our listeners today?
Make an effort to build genuine connections and relationships with people. And through that, everything takes care of itself.
100%, man. All right. Thank you, Sam. We appreciate it. Until next time, guys.